Welcome, everyone. My name is Mark Gatos. I'm CMO here at Enlight, and we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today on this webinar titled Expand HP Asset Manager's View to Your Data Center Infrastructure. And I'm pleased to introduce today Rob Neve. Rob Neve is the CTO and co-founder of Enlight. Enlight is a software company that was founded 11 years ago specifically to help companies get their arms around of sort of managing and automating the management of their data center infrastructure. And but prior to being at Enlight, Rob was at, I believe, UBS Bank for 8 years, where he was in the guts of the data center and decided that there needed to be a solution that would help data center managers be more efficient, help them reduce the time it takes to do their jobs. And so without any further ado, I am going to turn it over to Rob Neve.
Thanks, Mark. We provided DCIM solution, a data center infrastructure management solution, that really does tie into the overall infrastructure and the assets and the devices within inside the data center. And it collects and controls that information and provides it and shares it with other systems within inside the organization. We have a vast array of companies that are using the software, technology companies and different financial institutions and different businesses, basically. But the challenge that we're facing and what DCIM really does really well is the complexities of the data center itself. The data center in itself is a very complex environment. There's the power, the cooling, and the overall environment itself. There's the assets within inside those environments, the connections between those assets and the network and everything else, as well as the resources and the managing of those resources in line with those assets and joining that capacity. So it is a very, very complex area on the physical landscape. Then when you add against that or on top of that the virtual landscape, it becomes even more complex, understanding where everything virtually relates to the physical.
So I'm going to jump in here real quick, Rob, and let everybody know, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. We're going to try to get to them at the end. We're trying to hold to a firm 30 minutes for the webinar, so we're going to go pretty quickly. But if you have any questions, please submit them. Number two, and the next day we will send you a link to this recording so you can listen to this webinar and you'll have all the slides also. So for those that would like to have the slides, you don't have to take screenshots. We will be sending them out to you. Back to you, Rob.
Thanks, Mark. So the complexities. Data centers are a hugely complex environment. And how are they traditionally managed? Typically, or traditionally, customers have used Excel or drawing type tools and tried to bend these tools to capture and manage the capacity of what's happening inside those environments. The challenges with maintaining and using these type tools is they're separated from the real-time information, so you're unable to build or bring in real-time power metrics or device metrics into a spreadsheet or into some type of drawing tool and keep a track of what's going on from a real-time perspective. The other thing as well with these type tools is they spawn into different silo tools. So different teams start managing different spreadsheets, and all these spreadsheets start falling out of sync with each other along with the drawing tools, which in turn don't talk or share with any other systems. So you end up with lots and lots of versions of the truth that's going on inside the environment, which means when you want to do change or you plan to drive change inside your environment, you've got no single source of truth for that information. Now they turn, when you're in that kind of world, they try and turn to ITSM or they turn to other asset management type tools to look for the answer, to look for the information. These tools in themselves don't have a connection into the physical landscape of the data center, the changes that are happening in that data center, the capacity or energy or cooling that's being used in those environments, and they in themselves are then broken or separated from the spreadsheets and separated from these spawned off silo tools and unable to keep up to date with what's happening. This means when you start using asset management tools or ITSM tools and you try and make a change inside the environment, you often hit impacts where you're unable to find capacity, you overload capacity, and you're unable to keep ahead of the curve and drive advantages inside your environment. What this also means is because you're not tied, or the asset management tool is not tied into the infrastructure and the constraints of the infrastructure, you're unable to drive the benefits of tech refresh. So you're unable to look at new assets and savings from adding newer technology that uses less power, less space, and provides more IT or I/O to IT. So you're unable to do those benefits and push those within inside your data center. So DCIM really does start building or filling the gap or bridging the gap between the physical aspects of the data center, the assets and the capacity within those data centers, and extending IT asset management or ITSM into that world. So within Nlight, inside the DCIM, we have assets, we have the capacity of each asset. So we know the dimensions, the weight, the power, and their requirements. We know their network usage or what they're needed from a connectivity point of view. We know all their racks. We know the physical power infrastructure. We know how it all relates. All of this is automatically linked into the IT Asset Manager or ITSM system. So as assets are added, they're created inside Nlight, and then Nlight can deal with the capacity from a physical point of view, and then the placement and the instruction to enable an organization to basically join the dots between the whole lot. It enables, Nlight enables customers to deal with migrations and consolidations because we understand the physical impacts of moving servers from one place to another, or the growth of servers or consolidation of data centers. We understand the capacities and the impacts. We can tell an organization and help an organization control that change from a physical aspect. From a capacity management point of view, we know all the space, we know all the power that's used, we know all the networks, and we're tied into the physical data center infrastructure as well as reading from the servers the real-time information of what the servers are using. So we can join the two together to show available capacity and recommendations of where to put devices. We have tools and mobile solutions that can be used by the operators within the data center to keep the system up to date at the point of change. So when they're installing something, auditing, or making change within the environment, they can use these mobile solutions, capture that change, update the Nlight system, which in turn updates the asset management or ITSM systems to keep those in sync with exactly what's going on inside the world, inside the environments. Overall, this enables organizations to start driving change, start looking at advantages and things to gain out of their data centers and ways to change. And that's really where I put this slide in, to look at one of the world's largest banks. And the use case here from this organization was really they had the challenge. They were doing consolidations, they were doing mergers and acquisitions, and their world was growing. They didn't have a very good understanding of what was happening in their world. They didn't understand all the assets. They didn't understand the movements of those assets, and they were trying to control and manage this in Excel spreadsheets and drawing tools, basically. They had a very good asset management system, but it was separated from these tools and was out of sync. So the information and the reliability of that asset management system didn't work when it came to raising change. So they couldn't rely on it or rely on the information because it was not joined to what was physically happening inside the data center world. Their goal was to capture and provide a single view, really, of what was happening inside their world so that they could see the assets, tie that to what was going on inside the data center, and really the biggest driver for them was they had aging equipment that they wanted to get out and remove and start bringing in the benefits of new equipment and really go for a tech refresh ratio of 15% a year. They just wanted to get 15% of their equipment out, new equipment in, and start seeing the savings. So they implemented Nlight. Nlight was put in, it was tied into their asset management systems. We actually beat the targets that they'd set, which was 15%. We were up there at 35% and greater around the tech refresh, so actually changing devices. So we were getting rid of the old servers, the legacy equipment that wasn't doing anything, and we've got those systems ripped out, and we were able to enable the organization to start seeing straight away the power and cost-saving benefits of new technology. IT was able to see the new benefits from the I/O and the CPU usage of the new technology, and we were able to deliver value to that organization in excess of $6 million in the first year. And it really is a good, strong story of tying that asset management into the data center and that physical capacity to help push the tech refresh and the removal of old assets. So where does DCIM fit in the whole stack? I into everything that's physical. we're tied into the building infrastructure, we're tied into the power, we're tied into what's happening on the cooling. We know the constraints within each rack, within each environment. We know all of this from real time when we're talking to these systems. We know where to place items, we know the rules around the placement and joining of items, so we can keep the physical world in sync and in check with each other. So that means when we put a server into a rack, we know the capacity that that server is just consumed from the rack, that it's consumed from the overall environment. All of this physical that we understand, we can share with the ITOM systems or ITSM systems so that we can keep those systems in sync with the change that's happening all the time inside the data center from a physical standpoint, which in turn means that the asset management systems and the ITSM systems can be up to date and more secure in the when they reach in to raise change or make change within inside their environment. They know that the information within inside those systems has been validated in multiple ways from a physical aspect from when either goods are added or things change within inside the environment. So I've got a couple of slides now, and I'm going to talk about, really focus on the benefits to IT asset management. So when we're connected, you have all of the benefits from the physical world, the devices, the base, the capacity of the locations, the connections and power and everything else. You tie that to the logical and the services, the applications, the licensing, and that information from IT asset management, and you start bringing all of that together. You have an end-to-end view of your overall environment, which starts to build out a bigger picture of exactly what's going on inside the business. So this slide really talks around how we connect. So Nlyte has a connection capability. So we have a connectors framework that enables us to quite simply connect to Asset Manager, and we can pull and push information based on whatever the customer wants to do. It has a configuration piece in the middle with drop-down lists. So we maintain the APIs on our side, and we maintain the APIs on the Asset Manager side, and we provide this connector. We provide connectors for all the other ITSM systems that enable an organization to make sure that they get the benefits and the understandings of the physical world, and as that physical world changes, and the locations of things. We also, and it should be worth noting, we also tie into the server-based technology. So one view, we can start bringing back the real-time usage and the power usage of those servers and those devices, add that into the model. So now we know the physical power and usage within the data center from an infrastructure point of view. We know the power usage from a server point of view. We can extract the power usage of server from infrastructure to give you your remaining capacity in real time. All of this tied into the ITSM systems means that when you plan or you want to do tech refresh or change, you can model that within Asset Manager or ITSM, push that through, and it automatically works out the capacity impact within the data center environment. So some of the great benefits that you start getting from Asset Manager tied in with Nlyte. You get greater control. So you get a greater control from the physical world. So as you make or create an asset inside Asset Manager, you want to plan or decommission or move that asset, it's automatically taking into account its physical understandings and the physical constraints. It's already tying the two pieces of information together, which means from a data center side, you can start looking at what's been decommissioned within inside the business, which is no longer in use within the business, and start seeing the savings that you could capture within inside the environment. When you start tying that all through to licensing and warranties and maintenance and compliancy rules, you can start seeing around the locations, the placement, the who touched what, who changed what in the physical world. You can start driving that compliancy down as well. When you connect into change management systems and you drive workflow around, you can start seeing the change. You can start seeing the impacts of change, but you can also start driving change faster because you're planning, you're doing your what-ifs within inside the DCIM, and you're extending Asset Manager and ITSM into that physical landscape. What this gives, it gives an organization the ability to be more agile and move and react to change, but it also gives the ability to not have to, or IT not having to worry about the physical impacts, or do I have locations, do I have space or power, because the ITSM or Nlight controls or understands that power information and makes available what's needed as it's needed. And this basically gives you the ability to drive more hardware into the environment, get rid of old hardware, keep hardware fresh within inside the environment, to actually get the benefits of the new technology, and give, by having the IT asset management and ITSM view of the service and the cost of service, the cost of running the power, the cooling, and the resources for managing that physical world, gives you a complete end-to-end TCO for delivering a service. So you can start showing the business the value of a service within inside an organization. So I've got some screenshots now where I'm going to sort of take you through what you actually visualize when you start tying ITSM into Nlight from DCIM, and you start seeing the visuals and the benefits of that joined together. You'll be able to see real-time information against the assets that are coming from the ITSM system or asset management system. You'll be able to see the virtuals and the locations of those virtuals against those physical assets. This gives you the benefit of, if you had a power impact or something was to happen, you could see what that would affect from a service or business point of view, or you could look at areas of risks where you might not want to run a particular service. It also gives you the way of identifying zombie servers. So zombies can be either they're sitting in the data center, they're running, they're using power, but there's actually nothing going on. There's no movement, they're just basically idle, running in the business. So servers that need to be investigated as candidates that could be removed. Or the zombies could be, as far as the business is concerned within IT Asset Manager or ITSM, they've been decommissioned and no longer in use, but they're sitting in the data center, taking up real estate and taking up connections. By joining the two together, you're able to identify these zombies for removal so that you can rip them out and save and free up capacity for future growth or critical growth that might be needed within inside an organization. One of the other benefits of tying in to IT Asset Manager and joining that to the DCIM is because we know the locational changes of every device as it moves, whether it moves physically from one location to another or regionally from one region to another. We know those changes. We need to know those changes from a capacity point of view and a connection point of view, and we update IT Asset Manager with those changes, which in turn enables IT Asset Manager to see when certain devices or software is out of compliance. So i.e., you might not be allowed to use a certain piece of software in London because you are licensed only within New York to use that software. So we can help identify those locational changes and feed that back into Asset Manager to help identify breaches in policy. Within Nlight, we have a workflow system that enables you to drag and drop and build simple workflows around the physical changes that happen in those environments. So for the installation, capturing every task from installing the cables, making ready the power, making ready the aircon, making ready the rack, making ready the picking up of equipment, and the installation of equipment. So all of the granular physical things that happen for the installation of servers or the decommission or the moving of servers. We tie this workflow into change management. So as a change is raised by the business for moving or providing a new service, we then take from that system and start the workflow to do the granular work. When the granular work is done, we pass back to change management to tell the change management system that work is now complete, and then the change can be closed. We extend change management into all those physical aspects, and we provide the flexibility for an organization to really build out those change processes in any way they need. This enables a change management process to be replicated and duplicated, and basically enables measurement of each task. We can put the time taken for each task, who did what task and when. We can tell you how long everything is taken from a physical aspect. When we tie that to a change, we can start giving you the cost and overall time or duration of delivering a change right into the physical granular levels of the data center. We also, and this is probably one of the really strong points, we underpin and provide that physical understanding as it happens, as things change, the resources, the physical capacity, the movement of devices, the usage of devices within inside that physical world, we share all of that with other systems. So asset management, ITSM systems, power systems, whatever is in that physical world. We share that through our connectors, or we share that through our APIs, and we enable those systems to be underpinned or validated with anything that happens physical. We also read in from those other systems so we can take instruction for the new devices and help unify that process so that everybody is connected from the physical world all the way up to the logical world. We're collecting a lot of information and we're sharing a lot of that information with the rest of the organization. We store and capture everything we're sharing in a warehouse for analytics. This warehouse can provide the operators who are working and managing inside the data center environment the available capacity, usage of capacity, what's happening today, what's predicted to happen tomorrow, trends and analysis around what's going on inside that physical world. This same data capability, or this warehouse capability, can be harvested by other systems. So we share this with ITSM or IT Asset Manager, and we can reach into this information and we can start showing the usage and basically the delivery of service and what that means from a physical aspect on a right now or over a period of time, or even trending out what that would mean inside the environment. Nlyte also provides, like I've already said, we provide lots of connectors into ITSM. We provide connectors into asset management, change management. We're really bringing all of the IT aspects that rely on asset physical location and physical capacity information together into that physical world so that we can use that to tell the physical world what needs to happen from a planning point of view or a what-if point of view, but also so we can share the changes in that physical world that might need to happen or the constraints with these other systems.
Well, and I'm going to jump in here real quick, Rob. There have been quite a few questions, this might be a good time, about how we relate to HP OneView. And so this might be a good time, since we're talking about sort of the integration and so forth. Did you want to comment?
Yeah. So HP OneView is a fantastic system. It really does give us a view into exactly what a service is doing, from a power usage and a cooling usage, as well as availability usage within inside the device. We can read from those, or read from OneView, what the devices are doing, bring that to our assets so we know what the asset is doing inside our model from a power and cooling perspective. Inside our model, we also read from the infrastructure, the building infrastructure, or the cooling or the power within that environment. So we have that real time. When we join those two real-time values together, we're able to see real-time the usage of these IT assets and the usage or remaining capacity that's inside our environment. So we can see fluctuations in growth from a server point of view and fluctuations in availability from a data center point of view, join the two together, trend off, and look at patterns to see how do we make the data center last more and how do we get more out of our environment.
Thanks.
Okay. So to kind of wrap up and really go to the major points that I want to go back over, DCIM or Nlyte really does extend IT asset management and ITSM into that physical world. We have a very good, strong model around the physical world, all of the pieces around the data center, all of the physical aspects from power, cooling, and networks, location, size, and everything else. We extend asset management automatically by reading in that information, applying that to our model, enabling HP products to really control and help dictate at a granular level in the physical world of the data center. This connection framework we've built enables us to connect into other HP products. Nice and simply, there's a connector framework that can be configured in either way for bidirectional communication with a customer's environment based on their maturity or need within their business. And really, I guess this last point is probably the biggest, because it gives you, from the point of service within IT Asset Manager or ITSM, you can identify the logical service, the value it's offering to the business as a service, all the way down to the physical aspects within the data center, the resources within inside that data center, and then apply costs to it all. So now you have a complete end-to-end view of the whole delivery of service, and then you can apply a cost to that, so you can see it all basically. You can see a total cost of the overall data center.
Okay, great. Rob, we appreciate that. Again, if you have any questions, we have a little bit of time left here. I'm going to try to get to all the questions, but bring on more. It's great to just see the questions. If we don't get to them during the webinar, we will get back to you personally. Again, we're going to share the slides. In the next 24 hours, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording of the webinar so you can see all the slides and listen to Rob again and again and again, just like Star Wars. Okay, so let's get into some of these questions. Some of them are pretty tactical, some are sort of wider. What is the rate, time of synchronization between the two systems, right? So basically, there are a couple questions along these lines that were, how do you determine the synchronization?
It's self-configurable. So an organization, what we've done is we've built inside our connection framework, so the ability to communicate and talk between us and the HP products. We've had these validated by HP, so they've had to go through the normal process. But inside that connection, or the connector, you have the ability to set up your own sync ratios. So you can set when you want that information to be passed. You can also define what information you want to be passed to the IT system, or what information you want to be read from the IT system into Nlyte. So it's really flexible to an organization's maturity or area of compliance where they want to share that information.
Okay, great. Here's a nice, straightforward question regarding zombie servers. How can a zombie server be identified as being different than, say, one that only runs a batch job, say, once a week or a month? Which is interesting. You have a server dedicated to that task, but I will let you answer the question.
Yep. So what we do, it's completely right? There may be a server that only once a quarter or once a year actually suddenly comes to life. It starts doing stuff. Other than that, it's sitting there waiting for that big old...
It's a partial zombie.
It's a partial, it's a mutant. So you have that one server that's doing that. So we don't go in and we don't say, right, get rid of that server. We identify targets for investigation. And then if you identify that that server is a target, we look at it from a power point of view, and we see, oh no, it's not actually doing anything except for this one time a year. But inside ITSM, it says, no, it's live, this is what it does. We can show that relationship of information, we can show that to the business, and the business can make a choice. Ignore this server. So this server has a use, just ignore it. But most importantly, as the zombies, we can identify all the other hundreds of servers, and I say hundreds because it is typical, of these servers that are sitting there just using power, no longer using IT, or have just been left for an old project.
Okay. And we're running out of time. We're just not going to get to all the questions. Just no chance. So here's the last question before we might even go over a little bit, but we're coming to the end of the half an hour. I'm gathering a couple questions together. This is just like we did this webinar earlier for Europe, and similar questions about virtualization, like what information can you gather in both directions? What can you do with virtualization? How does it relate to Nlyte, and what's the sort of value of tying the two together?
Yep. So it really does depend on what an organization has. So if they have their ITSM system already connected and capturing the virtual information, we can bring back that virtual into our models, tie the virtuals to the physicals, that then in turn ties that to the power infrastructure, so that we can identify if there is a risk or an impact on a power infrastructure, say as a PDU or a power strip within inside a rack, we can identify what that power will affect from a physical server point of view, and then what that will affect from a virtual point of view. So if they have the capabilities with an ITSM, we can do it that way around. If they don't have that capabilities, we have a connector that will talk to the hypervisor. As the virtual is spawned or moved by the hypervisors, we track that against the assets, and we can do exactly the same. Impact analysis, we've lost this, we've lost this power, this is the effect on the assets, we've lost these virtuals. We can also take that virtual information that we're talking from the hypervisor and push that into the asset management or CMDB tool, so that it can have an understanding of the virtuals as well if they don't have some type of discovery connection with inside their ITSM systems.
Okay. I'm going to do one bonus question here. So bonus round for you, Rob. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
For 1,000 points. it has to do with heterogeneous environments. Again, I think we got this one in the earlier webinar, which is supporting more products than just Asset Manager, more products outside of the HP realm. So.
Yep. We don't. We only support HP. No, I'm joking.
You're very funny.
Thanks. The connector framework has been built to support any asset management system or any change management system. We actually have certified it, so that means we give it to the manufacturers to certify our connections and our integrations, to validate that they do what they say on the tin. Then we release them to the world. So we've got HP, BMC, ServiceNow, CA, and we're working through the IBM stack. So basically, we have the connectors that can start connecting whatever the landscape is inside an organization to join the IT area to the physical DCIM so they can really get the value and remove these spreadsheets and zombie servers.
Great. Thank you, Rob. And as I said, I'm sorry we can't get back to all the questions, but we will individually get back to everyone. By the way, I love the gotcha question. We'll get back to everyone who asked the question. And for those of you who are wondering, what's the gotcha question? Stay tuned for the next webinar, and maybe we'll bring that up also. So, again, we want to thank you for the time you shared with us today. We're going to be closing off the webinar here. Again, we will get back to all the folks, quite a few of you that we didn't get to your questions. We promise we will get back to you. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you on one of our upcoming webinars.
Thank you.